Hiya and welcome to Build. We are live from London and today we're joined by the star of God's Own Country and one of the nominees for this year's EE BAFTA Rising Star. It's Josh O'Connor.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
As always, we are live and interactive, so if you've got a question for Josh that you want to put to him, then you can tweet us at Build Series LDN, that's Build Series LDN, or if you've got a question on Facebook, you can put it in the video you're currently watching, and we'll do our best to get that to Josh before the end of the interview. Josh, hello and welcome to Build.
Hello.
First off, I've got to say congratulations on the BAFTA nomination and the success of God's Own Country. It's had huge critical acclaim, the fans love it, the critics love it. At what point did you sort of realise this is actually a really big deal?
Probably only like a few weeks ago, actually. It's kind of been a slow build. And
That is a slow build.
That is quite a slow build, yeah. No, it's weird because we've kind of got an amazing following of kind of we call them the God's Own Country family. And they're incredible. And so that feels like really, that's always been around and felt really special. But only recently is it kind of, I've been away from London, I've kind of come back to London and people are stopping me and saying, you're not actually from Yorkshire, are you? And it's kind of this weird kind of frenzy. So it's only sort of like the last few weeks that I've realised that.
Is it one of those things where I guess it was your life and you were in such a bubble for such a long time with the film to now have it out in the world? Yeah,
it was our little film that we made for fun in Yorkshire. And it was muddy and crazy and wet. And now it's suddenly glamorous. Now we're going to the BAFTAs in suits.
I mean, it is quite a 180, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just for anyone who's curious but hasn't seen the film yet, how would you sum up God's Own Country in a nutshell? If that can be done.
Yeah. Oh, it can. So it's a beautiful love story between a Yorkshire farmer, played by me, and a Romanian migrant worker, played by a guy called Alex Secureanu. And that's it in a nutshell, actually.
Yeah.
That's it. There's more to it, but you want it in a nutshell. So
I mean, we're going to get to that. Before we go any further, though, let's have a look at a clip of you in action as Johnny in God's Own Country.
Cool.
We should have a night out, Bradford or somewhere. What?
That's what I love about folk like you. You fuck off to your posh colleges and that, and then you swim back here on your holidays thinking you know it all. Some of us just have to get on with it, like...
Yeah, right, it's just a night out.
No, to you. I'll tell my cows they can go out with a tea, shall I? Because I'm off gallivanting around Bradford.
If you'd like me, uni mates, they're a laugh. One of them's a real laugh.
What do you mean by that, like?
He's nice, you'd like him, he's funny. Remember, like you used to be.
Before I had to join the real world.
You know what, forget it. You could be a right pain in the arse, John Saxby. And not in a good way.
Yeah, whatever. Enjoy your holidays.
So that's you as Johnny. As we've just seen from that clip, that's fairly early on in the film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's pretty dejected, he's pretty fed up with his lot in life. Can you just tell us a bit more about the character and specifically like the journey that he goes on from that point to the end of the film?
Yeah, so he is at that point in the kind of beginning of this film where he's an angry soul and he takes out his frustrations at life and the kind of the unforgiving career he has as on his family farm. He takes it out on kind of he has alcohol abuse, and then it's kind of just casual sex that he sort of takes from people in a very aggressive way, and his interactions with people aren't pleasant. They're angry, aggressive, and so that's kind of where we find him. And then as we kind of follow the film, there's a relationship with Georgie as Georgie comes in. There he is, beautiful Alec, and he sort of teaches Johnny to engage in an emotional level, because Johnny doesn't have any kind of any language of emotion at all.
Well, he's pretty isolated early on, isn't he? Because his whole life is devoted to farming, which he has to pick up from his family.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of the dynamic of that family is that any kind of conversation is about the farm, and even that is fairly kind of thin. You know, there's not a lot of dialogue in this film, and that's on purpose. So there's no need for it. It's just, you know, John, the real farmer that I worked with up where we actually filmed God's Own Country, the best compliment you could get, the best bit of farming I ever did was I moved a sheep in the correct way. And he said, he was like, it was all right. But that's the best you're going to get. That's like the...
Was that the ultimate validation when you got that?
That is completely the best review you can have. So really, it's not, you know, there's no kind of, I guess, in-depth analysis of emotion. So yeah, Johnny's completely isolated and has no way of understanding where he is in his world, really.
Yeah. You mentioned like there's not a great deal of dialogue in the film, which means that as an actor, for you, a lot of it is like it's on you. Is that something that attracted you to the film in the first place?
Yeah, because in a weird way, it didn't seem like there was not a lot of dialogue. It just seemed right, because they just don't talk. I mean, that's how that dynamic works. And when they do speak, we kind of have to earn it. And so the way we shot the film is like, you know, Joshua James Richards, DP, is the camera's here on my shoulder all the way through. We never let go of Johnny's kind of eye line, and we never leave his journey. So any kind of dialogue is obviously very thin, but it really hits home, and it's really important in that sense.
This was Francis Lee's directorial debut as well, and obviously it's a story quite close to him. Was he very precise when he was making it? Was he very insistent that certain things be shown in certain ways?
Yeah. No, Francis knew kind of what he wanted definitely what he wanted from day one. The script was in such detail, like finite detail, that actually, if I was to go back and read the initial script, if anyone who'd seen the film was to go back and read the script, you'd essentially see a carbon copy of what you see in the film now. I think there's like one scene we dropped, which is it was so rare. And every scene has kind of earned its place. You feel like there must have been drafts where Francis like cut and cut and cut. So yeah, he knew exactly what he wanted, followed it through from beginning to end.
Well, the film itself is so heavy with detail, so I think that definitely comes across when you're watching it. Obviously, God's Own Country is one of a few LGBT films that came out last year. You had God's Own Country, you had Beach Rats, you had Call Me By Your Name, obviously. Why do you think there's been such a surge in those kind of stories in the last, say, 18 months?
Well, I think it's kind of weird. I think essentially people are starting to cotton on to queer cinema being commercially viable. Like there's clearly a hunger for an independent film like God's Own Country to be I think it's the most successful, commercially most successful British independent film of the year. And you think, you know, now hopefully now people can cotton to these stories being, regardless of the genre, this film, it's no longer niche, it's no longer kind of art house. This is, people want to see these stories told. So let's make them, you know?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you as well, is say somebody saw God's Own Country, they saw the poster and saw, it's two men, it's a gay film, somebody straight, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily interested in it. What would you say to that kind of criticism and like to get somebody interested in it who maybe didn't think they would be otherwise?
Because, well, it's interesting in obviously many ways, but I think essentially I don't think anyone I know doesn't know a Johnny Saxby. And Johnny Saxby, regardless of his sexuality, regardless of his gender, is someone you will come across in your life, someone who's emotionally closed off, someone who can't love or be loved. And so I think that's why this film hit, regardless of your background, your sexuality, no North-South divide, no Brexit, Remain. You know, this is a film for everyone because it's about relationship. It's not about any of those things. So, you know, it's a universal love story, and people love love stories. And it's got hope. We all love a bit of hope, don't we?
It has got a hope, but I think that's something that especially a lot of LGBT critics have picked up on, because so often gay cinema, it's lovely and beautiful and romantic and all that, and then it always ends in...
someone dies.
Yeah, just death or just inevitable tragedy in some way or another.
Yeah.
And that's something that so many people have picked up on with God's Own Country, is that the end, I mean, there's a bit, 2/3 of the way through, 3/4 of the way through, where you think, oh shit, this isn't going to work out. But spoiler alert, it's got a lovely ending. It's got a lovely last shot as well.
It's really funny because you sometimes... I don't think I've ever met anyone who's gone and watched it and not watched it all the way through. But I remember there was one time ages ago where someone, I think, I later found out had to leave because they were on call or something. Their job meant they had to leave. And they came to me after. I spoke to them a few weeks later, and they were like, "It is bleak, though, isn't it?" And I was like, "You didn't watch it. It's definitely not bleak. It is. There's so much positivity.
It has its bleak moments, of course.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah.
it's like life. It's like you've got to have the bleak bits to get that
appreciate
payoff, the
as
happy
well.
ending. Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely. Was that something that Lee was interested in, was having a gay film with that sort of hopeful end?
I don't know. I know that for Francis, he loves hope and he
Yeah.
loves that kind of big swooping ending, and that's what you get. You know, it's like you almost have like the Richard Curtis moment at the end of the film where we kind of, you know, they elope and it's like this big moment. Except that, unlike with those kind of classical Hollywood commercial films, you would have someone come and say, you know, I've been thinking for a long time and now I know that I love you and I adore you and everything I did was wrong. Johnny comes up and says, I've come all the way up here and I'll coach and everything. And you're like, you haven't said anything, Johnny. But that's his way of expressing love. And I think that's why I really like that ending, is because we don't have it all rounded up and complete. We have this like an end we don't really know. Francis chooses this moment at the end of the film where we close the door on Johnny and Georgie, and it's like, you've had your chance to look, now go away, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another important thing of the film, it's all about the love story, of course, but also there's the family dynamic and there's families not communicating. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to as well.
Yeah, definitely. Again, that's something that Gemma Jones and Ian Hart, who are extraordinary in this film, that dynamic is so important and buys you moments in the film, like we've talked about before. You know, there's a moment where Johnny and his father, he's cleaning his father in a bath, and his dad can only kind of get up, thank you. But that speaks like 1,000 words. And again, it goes back to the fact that we don't use many words, so when we do, they have like huge ramifications, huge meaning. But yeah, that dynamic is so important to building Johnny.
Absolutely.
And closing him off. Yeah.
And that bit in the bath as well, it's one of the most intense bits of the film. We've had a question in from Michaela on Twitter, who says, when you'll next be working with Francis Lee? Are you the new Steve McQueen and Michael Fassbender duo, she asks.
Yes, we are. No, I don't know. Francis, certainly me and Francis, as soon as we finished God's Own Country, as soon as I met Francis, I was like, when's our next one? But I happen to know that his next film is just loads of women. So I don't think I'm in that one. But I certainly hope we'll work together again. We've talked about stuff, and there are things we're floating around.
Well, that's good. Maybe the next one.
Next one, maybe. Yeah,
you can hang around for that one.
Yeah.
I think so. A lot of the BAFTA-nominated films this year, it's all about kind of escapism and glamour and that sort of thing. God's Own Country, it's not escapism. It's very, very real, which I think makes it more relatable. And I think it makes it more resonate with people. Have you heard from a lot of people who've got in touch with you and said, "Oh, I saw God's Own Country, and it's really moved me in this way. It's really made me think about this." Yeah,
actually, loads, and it's the best compliment in the world, because I do think. I know for myself that it's so rare to go to the cinema and see yourself represented on screen. And one of the most important moments for me growing up in my kind of education in cinema was seeing Pete Postlethwaite in a film, or seeing David Thewlis in a film, because I was suddenly like, oh, not all film stars, not all brilliant actors look like Leonardo DiCaprio. That, people are real and they do exist in the film world. And so I think actually for people to go and see a film set in Keighley, showing farming as it really is in Keighley in modern times, and seeing how love isn't straightforward, I just think that's really important. And so the way kind of people have responded and gone, actually, for the first time, I've seen myself represented on screen, or I've seen a relationship I was in represented on screen. I think that's the best compliment I can have, really.
Has that made you think about what you're going to do next and kind of the roles you want to take on in the future?
Yeah, certainly the process has made me think that way. Like, I know now that, so for this, I worked on a farm for weeks before we started. I spoke in the accent all the way through. I lost ended up losing 3 stone in weight. You know, I did it all as to such detail, and I now know that I can't work any other way. That I have to work in that detail, kind of obsessive detail, in order to get something interesting for me, and hopefully for you lot. So I know that much. But in terms of parts, it's kind of like, it's a bit of a, you know, when the script comes in, I read it, and if I like it, then I get really excited. And if I don't, I just don't get as excited. Generally, I'm quite easily pleased, yeah.
Can I talk to you about your style of method acting? Because you've mentioned a couple of times that you went to go and work on a farm prior to this, which I'm really intrigued about. How much of a shock was that when you got there, and did you realise kind of how much work was going to actually be involved?
Yeah, well, I guess I did. I grew up in the country, but, but in the kind of Cotswold country, which is quite nice. They've got like Argos and stuff. They don't there, and it's like, it's really not. It's not the same. So I was definitely shocked. I was also shocked at kind of, it is the most unforgiving landscape world. You know, their kind of routine is insane. It's like 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. 7 days a week. You know, these farmers don't have holidays. Holidays don't exist for that in that world. And so kind of learning that was so important, and learning how Johnny interacts with that landscape. You know, people come out of seeing Gods and Country and they're like, oh, Yorkshire's beautiful, isn't it? It's so dramatic. And actually, yes, it is, but it takes Georgie to come and teach Johnny that this world can be beautiful and you can engage in it in a beautiful way. Because Johnny, at that point, at the beginning of this film, does not look up at any stage. He's down on, you know, he's working the land. So yeah, learning all that was really invaluable. And learning how to like deliver sheeps and stuff, that was pretty fun as well. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things that I want to pick up on there. But the first thing is, like you mentioned, Johnny, like he doesn't get a holiday. He's a young lad. Yeah, we saw in the clip a second ago, he's chatting to his mate, he's gone off to uni, and she's going, come meet my friends. And he's like, well, no, because I'm tethered to this. And I think that's something that when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, that's a really intense lifestyle. But while you were working on the farm, you picked up a few skills. Was that all you in the film doing that then? Because we saw you building a fence and delivering various animals, which was a lot, I will admit.
Yeah, no, it's all...
As a viewer, I can't imagine what it was like
100% real. Everything Alec does, everything I do is real. And
did you actually skin that sheep?
Alec actually skinned that sheep, yeah. Yeah.
That is a lot.
He did it in one take. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, we were kind of... I mean, actually, realistically, we were working on the farm. So Alec worked on a different farm, but I worked on the farm we shot the film on, and we'd be doing a scene, and they call cut, and then John, the real farmer, would come down and say, "Josh, help me out here," and I'd like help deliver a lamb, wash my hands, and then act again. So I was working two jobs. Yeah, it's brilliant. I wasn't being paid for one of them. No, it was amazing for John, the farmer. It was kind of like, you know, he saw me, you know, having an extra set of hands. It was great.
I mean, you've got some skills for life there as well.
I've definitely forgotten them already, and I now know for sure that I'm an actor and not a farmer.
I mean, I'm not speaking from experience, but I imagine delivering a lamb is like riding a bike. I'm sure that if a pregnant sheep were to wander in here,
we could all do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll be out of here. You wouldn't see me for dust, but I'm sure you'll be.
No, it's pretty. Nature sort of does most of it. Sort of comes out. Well, I won't go through it now.
Yeah. You can watch the film if you need to see any more.
Yeah.
To quote the great prophets, Salt and Pepper, let's talk about sex. Because there is quite a bit of sex in the film.
Yeah.
Which is almost as a lot as watching a skin being sheep.
A skin being sheep, yeah.
See, I'm getting tongue-tied thinking about these scenes. This is the problem.
Yeah.
Did you realise when you first signed up how kind of intense the scenes were going to be?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that they are so, or that people kind of see them as intense, because I don't see them as intense. Actually, they felt right. I remember reading the screenplay and thinking, I mean, if you were to take them out, it would just be a really bizarre film, because the way you're following Johnny Saxby in this film. You're so intimate, and you're allowing the audience to be like the third person in this relationship. So to kind of go into a room, let's say, or the barn, and then shut a door and be like, leave them to it. I'd feel shortchanged. So it was always going to be there, and it was always absolutely right that it was going to be there. As far as the actual doing of it, I mean, it was like we choreographed it down to a T, so that mud scene that's very raunchy was kind of. I think we did certainly no more than 2 takes. I think it was 2 takes, and we just knew exactly what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was muddy and mad and a bit crazy, but it was like a dance. We were kind of choreographed. We knew exactly what we were doing.
What the next move was.
Yeah.
Basically.
Your go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically like Twister.
Yeah, exactly like Twister.
Was there any kind of awkwardness? Because there's a few scenes where they're not even necessarily sexual, but that you will just be sat in bed together or in the bath together. There's a scene. Was there any awkwardness around that? Like when there was just the two of you on set?
I don't think so. It's really weird to think now that... I don't think there was. Me and Alec it's so rare, but we are like such great friends. And it's weird because the whole process of the film, we discussed very early on about the fact that me and Alec wouldn't hang out or meet until we meet for the first time in the film. So we wanted to have a kind of hostility. So we didn't have a friendship. The friendship developed as the story of the film developed. But we are very good friends. And so all those scenes, the only awkwardness really was the bath scene, and that wasn't a kind of uncomfortableness. It was just like, how do you fit
Two people getting in a bath.
6'2" men into this tiny little bath? And it was fine. He got tap end, so...
You won the coin toss with that,
I won
did
the
you?
coin toss, yeah.
Well, see, that's what you've just described, though. The film is so hyper real.
Yeah.
And, it's not glamorous. It's not like a Hollywood breathy, under the duvet sex moment. It's real.
Yeah.
And I think that's why watching it, I'm like, God, that must have been a lot for those two actors.
Yeah. Well, again, also it's credit to Francis and the team, because we created an environment on set that was so safe. And we had, we never had more, I think, in the actual room. When we were doing it in that barn, it was me and Alec, obviously, and then you'd have the DP and you'd have the sound, and that was it. And everyone else was outside. So it was about creating a space where you felt safe and comfortable, and we always did. And I think that then allows you to kind of go to the place we went to.
And I guess your style of acting as well, you must have been really in Johnny's mind anyway, so it's not quite
Totally.
so, oh God, I'm so aware of what's going on right now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It was I was talking in accent all the way through. I would, at the end of a take, I would take myself away. I tried not to engage with a lot of people, not in a rude way. They were warned, and I was pleasant to them, but I just sort of took myself off. And that just meant that, when they called action, it would just be like, we were in it.
Yeah.
Ready.
It was action time.
It was action
quite literally.
Time. Yeah.
Let's talk about the BAFTA nomination, because it's very exciting. You're one of the actors up for the EE Rising Star, which is obviously very prestigious. A lot of super cool, super successful people have won it in the past.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you first got the news that you were up for the
It was
award?
crazy. It was actually crazy, because this whole, as I say, this whole process has been mad. And so anytime kind of a nomination comes through, or just anytime anyone comes out of cinema and texts me and says, I really liked your film, I'm like buzzing. But the BAFTA's a massive thing, and it's one of those awards every year that you look out for, because you're looking at the rising star, you're looking who's going to be the next whatever. And also, I look across at the other nominees, and it's like, my favourite actors of the year, like Tessa Thompson's incredible, Florence is incredible, Timothy and Daniel. I mean, they've done knockout performances. So it's amazing to be up there with those guys.
All right, be honest. How competitive are you?
So competitive. No,
Are you
I'm not.
really?
I'm
Are
not.
you
I'm
like
joking.
taking them all out one by
I'm
one?
really not. I'm really not that competitive. No, and it's quite. I should be more competitive, I feel, sometimes. For that kind of thing, you kind of have to be, especially this public vote. I should be out there like handing out leaflets, but I'm not. I'm just sort of like saying how great the other ones are.
If you couldn't vote for yourself, if you were taking yourself out, who would you most like to see get it?
That's really good. It's really hard, because our film started at the same time as Call Me By Your Name and Lady Macbeth. We all started at way back at Sundance and went on this journey. And so I feel like we've got this connection, our three films. But I also know Daniel, and I really like Daniel. So for all of them, so that I don't disappoint anyone, I'm going to say Tessa. So I'll say
I was going
Tessa
to say
Thompson.
nice one. I was there.
Yeah. But
I'd
also,
one out there. But...
any other interview, I'll say someone different so that I spread it out.
All right, nice. That's the
Keep
diplomatic
everyone
answer.
happy, yeah.
Do you have much conversation between yourself and the other people who are up for it? Because I've seen a couple of the other award shows, people in the same categories, like going out together and things like that.
Not as such. I mean, I
Is that
when
because
they
you're so competitive?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I keep myself away. No, me and Florence were at the announcement together, and all we did was we were going around doing press calls and interviews, and we just stand behind the camera of each other's and try and put each other off.
Nice.
So that's good. So only me and Florence, and that's just like jokingly competitive, but really actually very competitive. Yeah.
How are you feeling about the actual night? Have you been to the BAFTAs before?
Never been to the BAFTAs.
So this is your first time?
This is my first time, yeah.
What are you most excited about?
I don't know, because you sit in a theatre, and that's the bit I'm not most excited about, even though that's the bit where people get awards, because I've got long legs, and I don't think there's a theatre in the UK that has enough leg room for my legs. So I'm not looking forward to that. But I'm looking forward to the meal bit, because that's always fun, because you get really delicious food.
Yeah. See what you
That'd
can
be
see off
fun.
other people's plates and stuff
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. Yeah. And see what all these kind of like famous actors eat. I'd be fascinated to know what Daniel Day-Lewis eats.
Can you get back to me on that one?
Salad.
Because I'm not going to sleep until post-BAFTAs now for thinking about
Yeah.
that. Can we talk quickly about what's coming up next for you? Because obviously you've just been cast in the BBC's new version of Les Mis as Marius, which is
Yeah.
very exciting.
Thank you.
How are you feeling about that? Because filming starts next month, is that right?
Yeah, starting a month. It's great. We've been doing a bit of rehearsal. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I did my first rehearsal, and I turned up, opened a door, and there was Dominic West was sat there, and I had Lily Collins there, and David Oyelowo, and I was kind of like, oh, I should leave, really, leave you to it. But no, it's an incredible cast, and I just think it's going to be brilliant. Everyone's used to the Les Miserables musical,
Of course.
which is wonderful, but this is a straight adaptation. Same guys that did War and Peace, which I thought was brilliant, and it's going to be so unbelievably epic. I hope.
I mean, it definitely
certainly in my
sounds
head
it.
it is. It's going to be brilliant.
The casting itself is pretty impressive.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Is a little bit of you concerned people are going to be comparing you to Eddie Redmayne because he was obviously in the recent film version?
I really hope not. They're not gonna, only because he's just so beautiful. It's such a great, what a face. So hopefully not in the looks department. But as far as performance, I mean, it's going to happen, isn't it? But it's just, I think people will be surprised by how different it's going to be. I think it is, we're trying to look at it afresh, try and look at kind of, otherwise what's the point in remaking Les Miserables so soon? I think we're coming at it from a totally different angle. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be
I
good.
mean, even the fact that there's no songs, it's going to be much more kind of story.
In my head, there's songs. Every time I read a scene, I'm going, one day more.
Can you
singing
not
in my
talk
head.
them into it, just putting one little music on them? But maybe
Yeah.
a new one as well.
Yeah.
Keep people guessing.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely some moments where I'll be just singing in my head when you watch it. Yeah.
Let me just ask you as well. You mentioned walking in and seeing all of these, because it's a star-studded cast, right?
Yeah.
Do you still get starstruck when you see people like that? Because I mean, you've worked with Meryl Streep, which surely
Yeah.
is already goals.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. No, it kind of, it's weird how that happens. It's as you get, I think because of the being involved in the industry now, it's less that you get starstruck. I don't get starstruck so much with actors anymore. But I will forever be starstruck by, say, footballers. And only a few weeks ago, I bumped into Robbie Fowler, and my heart was literally pounding. I mean, that to me.
I mean,
was,
mine would be the same if I saw Robbie Fowler. Just those laughs.
Yeah, I mean, what a beautiful man. No, I think that will never go. But actors, it's not so much starstruck; it's just complete respect. And I tend to go very quiet and shy and hide. Yeah. Whereas with footballers, I want to give them a good old
How's
hug.
that going to work out at the BAFTAs?
Yeah, it was going to be a nightmare. You won't see me. I'll just be hiding in my little footwell.
All right, Josh, I'm really sorry, but that's all we've got time for.
Thank
Don't
you.
forget that if you want to vote for Josh in the BAFTA Rising Star Award, you can do so on the EE website. And if you've enjoyed this, then we will be back at 3:30 with Leonie Elliott from Call the Midwife. So give it up one more time for Josh, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks very much.